Good evening, and thank you for being here. I'm Erica Phillips, State Policy Editor with the Connecticut Mirror, and I'm excited to welcome you to the third installment of This Could Work. In this series, I'm sitting down with some of Connecticut's most successful entrepreneurs to explore their origin stories, find out how they turned their first dollar, and most importantly, ask why Connecticut was the place to make it happen. Just a note, we have one more event in this series. In May, we'll be speaking with Felicia Rubenstein, who launched the thriving co-working space Haven in Darien. You can find out more information at ctmirror.org, where we'll also be posting a video recording of tonight's conversation. And there's lots more there to read and learn about Connecticut government, politics, and more. All right, tonight we're welcoming New Haven-born Jason Sobocinski. He's best known these days for his very hot, fast casual chain, Haven Hot Chicken. It's so successful, it was named last year as one of Inc. magazine's fastest growing companies in the United States. But it's far from being his first venture. He's a serial entrepreneur who has started a whole kitchen full of food and beverage companies. We'll hear a bit about all of them tonight, and we'll find out what got him started, what makes him tick as an entrepreneur. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you very much.
So, you've had a long and winding career already, but it's always sort of revolved around food, as I understand. I do want to hear all about it, but let's start with a wider lens. Why is food important to you?
Why is food important to me? Geez, I didn't expect that one. I mean, food is important to me because it's delicious. I like to eat.
It's a great answer.
Is this better? Yeah. Okay. Food is important to me because I truly love eating. But I'm also a storyteller. You guys will find that out soon, and I'll have to be cut off because I'm just going to keep talking. And what I love about food, and that I've discovered about food, is that there's a story behind every dish. And so I used to have Casey's Fromagerie Bistro, and our tagline was, "Every cheese has a story." And I learned that the more you talk about a particular food, especially right before consuming it, the more you taste it, and the better it is. And so I think that's fascinating, where we can like take a concept, a learning, and we can actually season our brains and taste something more because we've learned about a food. That's why I'm obsessed with food.
Yeah, I'm starting to understand that about you. Do you have a favorite food?
Do I have a favorite food? Depends on the time of day.
Totally.
You know, if it's breakfast, I'm a big egg guy. Lunch, probably cheese. That's one of my all-time favorites. I love all cheeses. Dinner, pastas, chicken, steak. My upbringing was interesting because I did not eat meat until I was 12 years old. So that was a big thing for me. My parents were hippies. My dad had juvenile diabetes, so 8 years old, he was diagnosed with diabetes, and they were vegetarians. And they were vegetarian because they felt like with my dad's diabetes, they would be able to eat much healthier by omitting meat. Now, Dad always has turkey on Thanksgiving and a hot dog on July 4th, which is not recommended if you don't eat meat all year round.
Have a hot dog.
But he still does it every July 4th. And my dad is 74 years old and has had diabetes since he was 8. And he would tell you that it's wine that keeps him alive, not a vegetarian diet. But, you know.
That's excellent.
And so, yeah, meat was a big deal for me because I would eat meat and it would piss my mom off. So I would eat more meat and I would cook meat. And it was just, I got really into it. And my grandparents and everybody else in my extended family were meat eaters. And so it was like this little bit of like, you know, be a rebel against your parents.
Rebellion.
Yeah, a little rebellion.
Yeah, I think I heard you had sort of a moment when you tried beef stew for the first time or something like a
that
core
was 12
memory.
years old, after school, Betsy Perkowski's house. Went over there. She was doling up some beef stew, and I was like, I want this. And when I got home, I told my mother, and she cried.
Oh, no. Now, okay, so the teenage years, this is when you launched your first food business, right?
Yes.
Tell us about what that was.
That was so. I've always been an entrepreneur. I have an entrepreneurial spirit, mostly because I don't like working for people or taking direction. But what you find out when you become an entrepreneur is that you may not have a direct boss, but every single person is now your boss. So that backfired big time. But I started this idea where I would bake a couple of loaves of bread and make batches of soup. And I had people sign up, and it was a once a week thing. I would go to your house, you'd leave a cooler outside, and I'd put 2 loaves of bread and 2 quarts of soup in the cooler some point in the day, and I would charge you a weekly amount. I think it was $20, which is wild because $20 doesn't get you anything anymore. These were 2 fresh loaves of bread, sourdough, and then fresh soups. And the first week I had, I think it was like 5 or 6 customers in my neighborhood. I had like gone door to door. And the second week it was like 15. And then the third week it got up to 25. And then a month into it, I had like 40 plus, and I was breaking it up into multiple days, and I had taken over the entire kitchen, and my mom was like, this ends now. Like, we can't even cook. I had batches of soup going and bread everywhere. I had emptied the entire refrigerator and thrown out all of their food just so I could put bread in there and let it ferment. It was a good time.
What kind of soup?
Lots of different chowders. During the summertime, it was gazpachos, vichyssoise, like cold soups, cold pea soup. And then as we got into the fall, I would do like chowders and things like that. I never did like big meat soups because I couldn't afford to buy the ingredients. So it was mostly vegetable soups.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Soup and bread.
Soup and bread, nothing wrong with that. And this is around when you started also working in restaurants, right? As a busboy. You've worked at restaurants in various parts of the world and sort of intertwined with your formal education. Tell us about kind of how that all started and your college, study abroad, grad school. How did that all come together?
I have been working in restaurants from even 8th grade through high school. I did busboy. Busboy is a great way to break into a restaurant because technically you're front of house because you're service. But if you're ever a busboy, you know that you're in back of house as well. You are washing dishes, you are making salads. So you get a nice check on both of those worlds. And so when I went to college, I found a pub that I could work at, and I worked at the pub. I did wings and pizzas and things like that. And I worked at several restaurants. I graduated. I went to Providence College. Had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, so I think I majored in marketing and minored in film. But it's liberal arts, so it doesn't really matter. But I was always in restaurants, and I saved up a lot of restaurant money, and a couple of my college roommates and I went to Australia, and we did about an 8-month sort of walkabout. We found a car, we worked while we were there. I picked zucchini for a while, but most of the time I was working in restaurants. I was a pot scrubber for a German chef who would like, Schnell, Schnell, scream like this far away from my face. I was a line cook, I was a waiter, and when I moved back home with college education, year out of college, my first job was to work in a restaurant. Now, I also got a job working at a desk doing some sports marketing, and I lasted there about 4 months because it was intolerably boring.
So one thing I forgot. So when you moved back home, did you move back home to New Haven, where you're from?
Of course I did.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and you grew up sort of right in the thick of it, right?
I grew up in New Haven, so I'm very opinionated when it comes to pizza. Sorry for all you people up here that think Colony's good. Yeah, I'm saying it. My parents, my grandparents are both first generation. So my father's side's Polish, Sobocinski. My mother's side, Italian, Valerio. But I had my uncles, my great uncles, had a store right on Worcester Street, where it's the big Italian section. It's where Pepe's is and Sally's is and everything. And it was called Cavaliers. And growing up, I would go down there and I would work in the store. We call it the store. And they would make fresh sausages. They had torpedoes of Orecchio provolone. They would almost like half the size of this stage. Just always food. My grandmother would come over every single Friday without fail, and she would cook dinner. And it was always vegetarian because my parents, but it was pastas, and I would cook with her every single Friday from the time my first memories to when she passed away.
Oh, that's great. What a great way to learn.
Yeah, I'm still not even close to being as good. No one can touch her food.
And what's the status of the store now?
So right now the store is a pizza place called Zanelli's, and it makes really good pizza.
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So tell us about, you got a degree in gastronomy and then you opened your own store. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. I was working. I went down to Miami to try to have a sports marketing job. That did not work out. So I moved back home, and my parents were having an anniversary. And so I went to this gourmet shop that they loved, and I was going to order them a cake. It was called Chestnut Fine Foods down in New Haven. And I started talking to the husband and wife team about what kind of cake I wanted. And they were like, well, who's catering the party? And I said, well, I'm going to do the rest of the food, and I'm just going to hire you to do the cake. And then we started talking about the menu and stuff. And they're like, God, would you like to work here? Would you like a job? And I was like, oh, all right. So I ended up working for them for about 2 years. And in that time, we would collect all of our tip money and we'd pull it together, and they would take us on these culinary trips. And so one of the culinary trips was up to Boston, where I was introduced to a business called Formaggio Kitchen. And it blew my mind. And this is one of the premier cheese shops in New England. 350 different cheeses. They have a cave in the basement. I fell in love. I was like awestruck. And so we got back to New Haven, and that night I called Formaggio Kitchen to find out if they were hiring, because I was like, I got to work there. And my girlfriend at the time was like, let's move to Boston. And I was like, yeah, let's move to Boston. She's now my wife. She's wicked smart. She applied to do a master's degree at this nice school up in Boston. That starts with an H. I'm from New Haven, so we don't talk about that one. Of course, she got in. So I was like, well, if you're going to do that and I'm going to work at Formaggio Kitchen, what's up there for me? And I found a program at Boston University that was started by Jacques Pepin and Julia Childs. And the whole thing was that Jacques came to America, and he went to NYU, and he said to them, I want to do a degree in food and cooking. And they said, go to culinary school. And he said, I don't want to go to culinary school. I've already been to culinary school in France. I want to do an academic study of food and culture. And they said, cooking is utilitarian. You do not need an education in it. So he went to BU, and eventually, after his career blossomed, and he started this program, and it's gastronomy. It's a master's in gastronomy, which sounds like a stomach ache, but it's actually the anthropological study of food and culture. And essentially, we studied how food defines you as a person. And so once graduating with that, there was absolutely nothing I could do with the degree, but it was really interesting, and it opened up networking possibilities. But I stayed in Boston for 3 years. I worked at Formaggio Kitchen. It was absolutely amazing. But like I said, my mom's Italian, so there was only so much time that I could be away from home, because you're required to stay within a radius of your mother when you're Italian. She now lives across the street from me. Just so you know, it's like Everybody Loves Raymond. Like, she just walks right in. What do we have for dinner? So I moved, when I moved back from Boston, I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew that I had I had a wife now. We weren't married then, but I had like asked her to marry me. And we moved back into my parents' house, which was right in Worcester Square. So it was a great spot to live. And I decided I was going to open a business, and it was going to be a cheese shop. And I knew that a cheese shop wasn't sustainable enough to be on its own. So I wanted to open up a restaurant as well. And I borrowed money from 5 different family members. They all got paid back with interest because they're Italian. And it was fantastically successful after the first year. The first year was really, really hard. People did not understand it. They didn't want to hear about cheese boards. They didn't want to buy fancy, expensive cheeses.
Oh my gosh, when was this? Because I feel like people all want to hear about cheese boards now.
Well, they do now.
People only want to hear about
They do now, but remember, I opened Casius in 2008,
Okay.
which was the very beginning of the recession. And I opened up a shop in New Haven that sold fancy French cheeses at $28 to $35 a pound. And everyone else was losing their job. So it was a hard sell, but we stuck with it. And eventually it started rolling, and the recession actually helped. And this is something I've done in my career at every point. I absolutely love a challenge. I will rise to it. I have 7 different businesses open and operating during the pandemic, and this is how many shut down. Because I refused to shut anything down. We innovated, and we just got scrappy, and we stayed open. And I did that during the recession in 2008. And we did all kinds of things to get people in and to introduce them to what we were doing, and we won them over. And then it just became really successful. Back then, New York Times would leave New York and actually do ratings, and we got a very good, which is a big deal for a lower end spot. And it just got better and better and better, and things began to roll. And I brought my brother, who was 10 years younger than me, in, and he wanted to do something, so we started a food truck. That's the crispy, melty Casius cheese truck. We have 2 of those now, and they're still on the road. And we do grilled cheese sandwiches.
How do I know where the crispy melty truck is at any given time?
You can go to www.crispymelty.com, and we have a schedule up. Yep. And we mostly do private events. We don't really vend that often, but we do go to festivals and concerts, and we do a couple different kiosks around as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that was Casius, and there's so many businesses since then that you've had a hand in launching. Olmo, Ordinary, Blackhawk Brewing, Mystic Cheese Company, Continuum Distilling. Tell us about the journey.
For me, I have a pretty severe attention deficit disorder, and I'm dyslexic. So I need to surround myself with smart people. I got all the passion in the world, but I need smart people around me. And so in building my first business, I brought my brother in. We started the truck. I had a wine salesman, Tim from Eater Brothers. He's still on my phone as Tim from Eater Brothers. He's been my partner at Ordinary for over 10 years. He started coming in selling wine to me. And then, sometimes you'd be trying some wine and somebody would call out for the night. I'd be like, oh, man, Tim, can you wait tables tonight? Okay. All of a sudden, Tim's a manager at Casius. I remember him coming to me and be like, how am I a manager now? I thought I sold you wine. I was like, and he came to me one day and he said, I would love to start a business with you. And I was like, great. Let's look for a business. What do you want to do? I want to start a cocktail bar. We started Ordinary. It's now 11 years old. Condé Nast Travel gave us 50 best bars in the world. It's a big deal, right? Awesome. He is an absolute cocktail, exceptional, blow your mind. I don't really drink alcohol anymore, but I still will go to Ordinary, and Tim will make something that's absolutely amazing and has no alcohol in it. He makes his own shrubs, his own vinegars, uses all kinds of stuff. And when the pandemic hit, Ordinary was completely shut down for one day. And then Tim and I said, you know what? What if we make cocktail kits? What if we put a big screen TV on the bar and we open it up to 50 people and we sold cocktail kits? You could come pick them up. It's like $40, 3 different cocktails mixed in, and we would spend the evening with you on Zoom. You could be in your living room and we'd show you how to mix a cocktail with the cocktail kit. All of it's all included. So like we did some really cool stuff. Ordinary's still going. Tim is still operating it. Ben, who started with us, who's our first hire, is now part owner. He's got equity. And over time, my plan is to phase myself out of that because those guys are operating it and running it. And I love inertia points and momentum. And then I like to kind of fade away. And so that's what I'm looking to do with a bunch of the businesses that I've started now, because every business except for that first Casius one, I have partners in. And I love partners because I've got 3 kids at home and I want to have a life outside of my businesses. And I think it's great to collaborate with smart people.
Nice.
I have no idea what the question you asked me. I told you I'll just drone on.
I listed a bunch of businesses and you talked about Ordinary, but you haven't told us about any of the other ones.
So that's Ordinary. Mystic Cheese. I used to sit on the patio at Casius and drink beers with Brian Civitello. He was a cheesemaker at Calabro. Now, if you know anything about New Haven pizza, you know that Calabro supplies most of the mozzarella. It's not mozzarella. That's weird. It's moots if you're in New Haven. And Brian used to work at Rogue Creamery out on the West Coast. He worked in the Italian Alps. This guy's a master cheesemaker. So we would sit on the patio, we would talk about cheese, we'd drink a couple beers. And one day he said, I have a concept that I'd like to bring to you that I think would be interesting to talk out. And what I want to do is I want to take a shipping container and I want to put a cheese factory into the shipping container. And then I want to take that shipping container, I want to drop it onto a farm next to where the cows are. And I was like, I'm in. Let's go. And that was Mystic Cheese Company. And we made cheese in a shipping container for about 5 years, which was the stupidest idea anyone would ever have. There's no room. You're bumping elbows up constantly. We got picked up by Whole Foods. We got a bunch of distribution. And it was like, okay, we better get a brick and mortar, like a real space. And now we have a space out in Groton. We've been there for 7 years or so. And we distribute cheese all over the U.S. There's a cheese shop in Puerto Rico as well. And we've run the gamut from soft cheeses to hard cheeses, and everything in between. And it's been really fun to have a cheese production facility. So that's up in Groton. And we're making cheese.
Are they all made with like local Connecticut?
100%. Yep. We have a Toyota Tundra and a trailer, and every other day, because we make every other day because cheese takes time in the room, we go and we pick milk up from local farmers in these large totes, fill them up with milk. We drive them back to our space. We put them through an RDSD, which is a type of very fast pasteurization. And then we make 100% cow's milk Connecticut cheeses.
Awesome. Let's hit one more. Tell us about Olmo.
Olmo is the best bagels, not only in Connecticut, but also in New York. We actually went down to New York and entered into the Brooklyn Bagel Festival, and we won Best Bagel. So there you go. I think it's the water.
Interesting.
Because you get good pizza in New Haven, naturally you're going to have good bagels. Now we do something different at Olmo. And the story of Olmo is Craig Hutchinson worked as my head chef at Casius for about 2 years. And Craig came to me and he's like, man, you did something with Tim. You did Black Hog with Tyler. You did Cheese Truck with Tom. He's like, I want to do a business with you. And I was like, great, do it right here. I'm done with Casius. Let's do something different. I had these like premonitions and feelings that we were jumping the shark. I don't know if you guys have ever heard jumping the shark. It's that, Happy Days, those episodes where it just got beaten to death. And I wanted to go out with that business on a high note because I love branding and I know that each brand that I'm involved in is interconnected. And that's really important. So I didn't want to hit this peak with Casius and then have it start to go downhill and hurt the other brands. And I wanted some of my life back. I was living at Casius because it was my baby and I was sole proprietor. So I said, Craig, let's do it. So Craig's concept for Olmo, and Olmo means elm in Italian, and New Haven is the Elm City. So Craig's concept was, let's do, similar to Casius, let's do a bakery and bagel shop in the downstairs area where the cheese shop was, and then let's do a high-end sort of new style cuisine of Italian food, because New Haven didn't have any of that. We have lots of old school Italian, but no new school Italian. Let's make the pasta by hand. Let's make the bagels by hand. Let's cook in front of people. So we did a big renovation. He bought me out a certain percentage, and every year I'm vesting less. And we opened it up, and all of New Haven absolutely hated it. And people walked in and they were like, we want Casius. What can we have that's Casius? And I'm like, but this is a new place. Let's try something new. This is going to be exciting. And they're like, no, we want Casius. And people would write on Facebook, as you know, it was a while ago because people still use Facebook. People would write on Facebook like, I miss Casius. I hate Olmo. And Craig felt really, really bad. And then the best thing that could ever happened. Pandemic. And we had to pivot. It's an opportunity. You can think of it as the worst thing ever and it was terrible, or you can make it into an opportunity, because that's what failure is. It's truly opportunity, right? And that's the mantra I have at all the businesses. Please fail. It's an opportunity to learn. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. And it hurts. So it was painful and it sucked. But we were able to close down the restaurant portion and really go all in on the bagels. And prior to this, we were hand forming bagels, and they were boiling them in water, and they were very traditional, and they were good. Don't get me wrong. But this forced us to really invent and innovate. And we purchased a bagel shaper so that we could produce way more bagels. And we invented a new technique where we would make the dough, shape the dough, and then tray them all out, and then ferment those bagels once formed for 2 nights. So really nice fermentation, great flavor. Pull them out and then put them into an oven that is a steam oven. So it would inject steam into the oven. It would produce all these little micro bubbles on the outside of the bagel, make this really nice, like crisp crust, but the inside is nice and airy, super light. And they just hit. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we were doing 1,000 bagels on a Saturday. Like, oh my gosh, that's insane. We were selling like 50 before that, right? Today we sell 5,000 to 7,000 bagels every Saturday. It's wild. We're at 5 different farmers markets. We do catering for everybody. Like it's explosive. It never would have been what it is now if we had just stayed this like Nouvelle Italian cuisine, because nobody liked it. It was okay. We tried. And now we're all in on bagels, and it's really, really fun. And we make a New Haven style bagel. It's not a New York style bagel. It's not a Montreal style bagel. It's a New Haven style bagel. We're the only ones that make New Haven style bagel because they are steamed and not boiled. And it's a really interesting type of bagel. And if you've never had one, you should go.
You should go.
But if you do, you should order ahead, because the wait on Saturdays and Sundays can be up to an hour.
The cacio e pepe bagel.
Oh, it's a good bagel.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, cacio e pepe bagel is a homage to the old restaurant. And what we do is, before we bake the bagel, we lay a thick slice of provolone on top, and then a ton of freshly cracked pepper. And then we put it into that steam oven, and it steams, and the cheese melts over it, but also melts into it and like fries on the bottom after the steam when it goes into the bake cycle. It's essentially a deep fried bagel. It's really good.
If you guys are not hungry right now, I don't know what what you've been listening to. I want to ask you, sort of been touching on this a little bit, but what role did just being in Connecticut play in all of these things? Because you've got your New Haven style bagel, you've got all your kind of local folks that you're partnering with. Like, how is Connecticut an asset to everything that you've created and built here?
I think that possibly besides Manhattan, Connecticut as a whole might be the most difficult place in the entire world to do business. I met with a potential franchisee for Haven Hot Chicken. We haven't talked about Haven Hot Chicken yet, but we'll get there. And he flew up from North Carolina. And we started talking about prices and expenses. And he said, well, what do you start your team members at? You know, your lowest. And I said, well, $16.75 to $17.50. And he almost fainted. And I was like, well, what do you do? And he goes, well, I can't pay people minimum wage, so I start them at $10.50. I was like, oh. He said, well, what's your average per square foot rent? I said, well, it's $55 to $95 per square foot, and then there's triple nets and cams that are another $12.50, depending on where we are. He said, oh. I said, well, what's yours? He said, well, we start at $15 a square foot with a $2.50 triple net and cams. I was like, oh, okay. And then we started talking about taxes, and he actually left the room. It's expensive and it's hard, and there's a lot of regulation here in Connecticut. It's a difficult place to do business, but there's also a ton of density. There's in all the places I am, I'm in a lot of towns that have universities. There's a ton of intelligentsia, which means there's people who are looking for new experiences when it comes to food, and I think that's exciting. So we have a lot, but we pay for it. So I think it's difficult, and I think that it's poised me to get really excited about expansion out of Connecticut. Of course, where's the first place I'm going to go is Massachusetts, which might be this much easier. So we'll see. But I'm excited, and I love a challenge. So I'll take whatever Connecticut can throw at me. My first business, Casius, when I first opened it, I put a A-frame chalkboard on the sidewalk. Grand opening. Casius Fromagerie Bistro, come on in. And the first person to come in was a New Haven meter maid who gave me a $300 ticket for impeding the sidewalk. So there you go. But I got a good story out of it, so it's fine.
So there's a rule or two to abide by around here. All right, let's talk about Haven Hot Chicken. Where did this idea come from? And you've been growing really fast. Tell us about everything that's happened.
Yeah. So back in the day, Casius Fromagerie Bistro, I had a Yale student walk in right off the street, come up to me, and I knew who he was because he has a very unique name. His name is Ekin Tekken, so you kind of remember that name, right? He's Norwegian. He has like dual citizenship or something. He went to Yale, super smart. And I'm used to dealing with Yale students, Yale grad students, doctors, lawyers, tons of catering. I used to grab all my people, get them together. All right, people you're going to be serving are some of the smartest, most brilliant, most wonderful people in the world. They also have zero social skills, so don't expect a thank you. Just they're going to cure cancer, and you're going to serve them food. So we were prepared, right? So Ekin comes in, and he's a beer nerd, and he loves beer. He knows everything about beer, and he says, I want to be a manager. I want to run your beer list at Casius Fromagerie Bistro. And we sold a good amount of high-end Belgian beers. I was really into beer at the time as well, so we connected on that. And he said, someday I'd like to partner in a business with you. And I was like, sure thing, bud. So he worked for me for about 9 months, actually did an amazing job. And one of the things I used to do at Casius was, hey, we're closed on Monday and Tuesday nights. The space is yours if you want to do something with it. So he would have these elaborate sort of beer tastings where you could bring bottles in and do like a bottle trade. And he would charge people like $10, $15. We'd put a bunch of cheese out and it would fill the place up, and all these beer geeks would show up and taste beers and, oh, this one's a little snappy and stuff like that. And it was great. And I was really impressed that he's like, I can have the place, I'm going to monetize. I don't think it made any money, but it was still full. And so we stayed in touch. He left Casius and he got a big time job for AB InBev. So Budweiser, right? Just the biggest company in the entire world. And we continued to stay in touch, and he worked there for, I don't know, 7-something years, and we were always going back and forth. He still lived in New Haven. He would commute to the city. He would complain about it a lot, his big fancy corporate job. And I remember he told me how he scaled a company within the company to do sales of cans and can ends for different beer. And he scaled it from 0 to like $30 million and made them $18 million. And they gave him a $10,000 raise. And I was like, so when are you going to open your own business, right? And we both, because I opened a brewery as well, Black Hog Brewing Company. It's 13th brewery in Connecticut, still going, innovating, doing all kinds of really cool stuff right now. We both ended up being in Nashville for the Craft Brewers Conference, which is essentially 6,000 to 7,000 bearded fat men walking around in a convention center, talking about beer, tasting beer, drinking beer. So at night, I was like, let's go check out this Nashville hot chicken we've all been hearing about. So we went to Prince's. That's the OG. That's the number one. They invented it. And the story of Nashville chicken is really cool. It comes from basically this woman found out that her husband was cheating on her. She got really, really mad. So he came home late one night. She said, I'm going to fix you your favorite meal, fried chicken. So she made him fried chicken. She took some of the cooking oil from the fried chicken and she put it in a bowl. Then she put insane amounts of cayenne pepper, white pepper, black pepper. She was like, screw him. You burn me, I'll burn you. And she took that hot oil slurry and she put the fried chicken in the hot oil slurry and coated it. She was like, he's going to die. She served it to him and he loved it. He was like, oh my God, this is so good. He was a real piece because he stole the recipe and technique, and he opened a late night spot out of his garage making fried chicken and dipping it into the oil with all the pepper. And that's essentially what Nashville fried chicken is. It's fried chicken, typically twice fried. So you do a very slow and low pressure fry. You get juiciness. You set the crust, but it's not crispy yet. Then you do a second fry where it's very, very hot and you crisp up the outside, and then you dunk it into this essentially oil marinade. And you would think that if you take something fried and you dunk it into something, that it's going to get soggy. But you're dunking it into pure fat. So the only thing that makes things soggy is water. There's no water in this. So you're getting this fat, and it's actually setting the crust even more, and it's even crispier. It's really quite unhealthy, but superbly delicious. It's not unhealthy if you eat Haven Hot Chicken, and I'll explain why later. And so we tried every single Nashville spot we could get to. I had the worst stomach ache for a while. We probably went to like 8 or 9 places, and we had a ball, and everyone's drinking beer, and there's bearded fat men everywhere. And we got home, and then probably, I want to say it was almost shy of a year later, Ekin hit me up, and he said, hey, can we get together for a coffee? And I was like, oh, did you get somebody pregnant? He was like, no, I want to talk about business. I was like, oh, okay. Usually it's a beer, so just checking. So we get together, and he says, I've got these 2 guys that I know well They have this restaurant called the Beer Collective. One's a chef, one's the owner of it. I was like, I know the Beer Collective. I know Rob and Craig. I know those guys well. He said, well, listen, Rob's got a great Nashville chicken recipe. I have a concept. We've been talking about a brand. We have been going back and forth. We want to create a restaurant brand, not a restaurant, a brand, and we want to scale it. And this is something that I've never done. I've only done independent singles. And I looked him dead in the eye and I said, Ekin, I'm out. I'm not interested. He's like, all right, come and try it. Come and meet the guys. Come and talk about it. I was like, I will do that. He's like, maybe you can consult. I was like, oh, consulting is quite lucrative. But I knew that they had no money. So I was like, sure, I'll come check it out. It's, whatever. And then I sat down and then I tried the chicken. I tried the coleslaw. I tried Rob's food. Rob opened up his laptop. He had an Excel sheet with VLOOKUP, every single recipe, every single cost. I was like, okay. Then there was the logo was set. The branding was fleshed out. I was like, this is more than just a concept. So they wrangled me in, and 2 months later, they were like, you're going to be the president. And I was like, well, I don't know what that means, but sure. And now my role is president of Haven Hot Chicken. I'm the CEO of Haven Hot Chicken franchise, which we just started, and I head the commercial department. And Ekin comes from 8 years of corporate AB InBev, knows all of these terms like we're going to circle back and let's align and let's do some heavy blocking and tackling and things like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I have no idea what he's talking about. There's a lot of KPIs and OKRs and all this stuff. And I'm like, cool. I'm just going to be the passion. I'm going to be the brand. And it's worked out really well. We have a great sort of dual role where I make a lot of mess and he cleans it up with all of the structure.
Well, that's great. There's so much in your portfolio. There's so many different things. You are also, aside from the restaurant business, you're also involved in real estate. How do you keep all that straight, and how does that play into what you're doing with the food businesses?
Well, back in the day, the restaurant industry was a cash business, which was awesome. And then you had cash, right? There was like actual paper money. And so the best way to use paper money, in my opinion, is real estate. And you can go in and you can buy a physical asset. And I've always loved real estate because if you take your cash money and you put it into the stock market, you can probably make more money. But traditionally real estate does well, but you can physically go in. Like if the water heater fails, I can go change the water heater. But if the company that I invested in the stock market fails, there's really nothing I can do about it. And so I started doing real estate with my brother. We bought our first house, and he lived in one of the apartments, and so we got a good deal on it. And we started thinking about hospitality and how we could apply hospitality to the real estate business. And so when you move into one of our apartments, which is always immaculately clean and well taken care of, no matter what neighborhood it's in, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, nice floors, new windows. When the day you move in, there's fresh cut flowers on the counter, right? Mother's Day, you get an edible arrangement. Holidays, any of the kids, they're going to get a Barnes & Noble gift card. So you start doing these little teeny things that really, you look at the cost. We're talking about over the entire year, one apartment maybe costs $250. They're paying your mortgage. Like I'll spend 5 times that. I've got tenants that have been with us for over 15 years. They could have bought the house themselves, and they're just paying the mortgage. And so we started with one property and we paid it down over time. We refied it. We did another. We did the same thing. Now we have about 30 doors, so 30 apartments total. And we take really good care of our tenants, so we don't have a ton of turnover. We don't overcharge them rent because we know them. We know it's a lot more expensive to get a new tenant in. You lose a month, you have to repaint, the whole deal. And it's just been going really well. And my hope is that when my kids get to college age, which is approaching very quickly, like I can't believe how fast this is happening. My oldest is going to be going to high school next year. My brother and I can take a house and we can refinance it, and that will pay for one semester. So that'll be that's the plan. That's the plan there. And I just think real estate's really interesting. I think there's a lot of opportunity. It takes a lot of work. We don't have property managers. We have some deals with our tenants, but it's a relationship business. And if you treat tenants well and provide what you're supposed to, almost as if they're a guest at your restaurant, that whole change, everything is different. Because I talk to other landlords and they complain about their tenants. I have to remind them, like, that person's paying your mortgage. Don't forget that. So I really like real estate. I think everyone should get into real estate in some capacity, even if you're just investing in like a real estate company. I think it's a fantastic way to start investing.
Oh, really interesting. Now, I realize we're pretty close to 7 o'clock, and I did want to give people in the audience an opportunity to ask a question or two. And Robert is in the back. He has a microphone. He'll be coming around. And looks like, Gary, you got your hand up right away there. So
Just a real quick one. You mentioned Haven is a healthier chicken in a not healthy category. You want to give us some background on that?
I would love to. Thank you for asking. I'll give you a commission later. So there's frying, and I would say 99% of the restaurants that fry in soybean oil, because a 30-pound pail of soybean oil costs about $28. And so it's the most inexpensive oil that you can possibly fry in. But it's really bad for you. And once you use it, even for a short period of time, it starts to change. And not only does it change in the health of the food that you are frying and cooking in that oil, it also starts to off-gas a lot of volatiles that are really not good for the people who are frying. And so one of the things that we set out to do when we started Haven Hot Chicken is to be flat out a good employer. So we do some fun stuff. We do a program called Shoes for Crews. So every 6 months, you work for Haven Hot Chicken, we buy you a pair of non-slip shoes. The insurance agency actually likes that a lot too. There's no slip and falls. We have a 401k plan with a match, right? And it's an opt-out, which means you work for us for 6 months, you're automatically enrolled in it. And if you want to opt out, I'm probably going to pull you aside and have a conversation about how you're probably not smart enough to stay with us, because we're giving you more money. And I want people to save. We do a ton of development. We do surprise and delight. We practice hospitality for our team. But when we found out what soybean oil does, off-gassing, and the long-term exposure that you can have as an employee of a restaurant that uses fryers, we automatically said, absolutely not. So I did a bunch of research, and I found out that high oleic canola oil was our best choice, both for cost to us, and it does cost about 3 times the cost of soybean oil, but also really high quality. Like using olive oil wouldn't work. Smoke point's too high. Using peanut oil would be amazing, but you can kill people that have allergies. So one of our values is inclusive, so we decided not to do a peanut oil. So we used it and checked out a ton of different options, and the high oleic canola is the best option. It's actually a healthier oil that when you use it, does not off-gas. We filter every single day as well, but it also contributes to the good cholesterol, not the bad. So should you eat fried chicken every day? No, don't do that. But every other day is great. And if you're going to eat fried chicken, why don't you eat really good chicken produced in really good oil? And so we use NAE halal chicken. So halal is a designation for people who are Muslim, similar to if you're Jewish, kosher. We did a pop-up at an Indian restaurant. They said, you can come in, you can take over the restaurant, but you have to use halal meat. And Rob fell in love with it. He said the quality was the best he's ever seen. The consistency was great. I buy halal meat for my family. I absolutely love it. NAE stands for Never antibiotics ever. 100% vegetarian fed. There's absolutely no hormones. And so we feel good about this, right? Listen, for the longest time, Chick-fil-A used NAE chicken. That was great. I mean, they're not a great organization. I'm going to absolutely trash them, right? They're not inclusive. On the front door of every single Haven Hot Chicken, and there's 9 of them in the state right now, it says open every day for everyone. And that is a shot at Chick-fil-A. But I can't down them for the product that they used to use. They used NAE chicken. It got too expensive. They jumped off of it. They're using commodity chicken now, which actually opened up the door for me, so there's more NAE available. So you have a choice, and I want people to think of us, Haven Hot Chicken, as a premium choice. I can't compete with the big guys, nor do I want to, because that will be a race to the bottom. And so we're more expensive, and you get something for it, and that's okay. And I think it's important, and in all seriousness, you shouldn't eat fried chicken every day. But every 3 days, there we go. I hope that answered the question.
So I was wondering, does New Haven Hot Chicken believe in sponsorships for individuals or other LLCs?
It's a really interesting question. Not last year, 2 years ago, the NCAA started a program called NIL, Name, Image, Likeness. And this opened up the possibility to take collegiate athletes and actually pay them, which you couldn't do in the past because they would be ineligible. But now it's opened up where you actually pay collegiate athletes to be sponsors. And so Haven Hot Chicken being a startup, we don't have big money. So we talked to some of the UConn stars. We talked to Donovan Clingan last year, 7'2" superstar of UConn basketball. And his agent wanted $50,000 for him to do 3 Instagram posts. So we talked to Alex Caravan, who's also an awesome player, but not a superstar. He actually did just sign back up. He's coming back to UConn because I think he was going to be like 45th in the draft of the NBA. But he's coming back to UConn, which is great. And Alex said, for $3,000, I will come and be your sponsorship, but I also want unlimited chicken for me and my friends up at UConn. And we do have a shop up at UConn. We sponsored Dalmont Gordine on the UConn football team. Absolutely unknown. He was amazing. And what we found was he came out, he did a big sponsorship for us. We weren't allowed to use the UConn Husky image because you got to pay 25 grand for that. So my cousin has a husky named Max, and I brought Max down and I held French fries over his head behind the camera, and Dalmont stood behind him with a chicken sandwich and said, Haven Hot Chicken fuels my game. And so we've been creative with some NIL sponsorships, but philanthropy, when it comes to all of my businesses, has been a absolute marketing boon for us. And I want to be very transparent when I say I use philanthropy for marketing. And if that makes me a terrible person, judge away. But I think that if you are going to be in a community, you have to give back to that community, and they reciprocate by coming and being part of your community, right? There's sustainability. Sustainability is sustaining one's community, and they sustain you. So we hooked up with with CT Food Share, which was formerly Connecticut Food Bank. They serve 450,000 Connecticut residents who are food insecure. 125,000 of those are children under the age of 12. We live in the richest state in America, the richest country in the world. And we have almost 500,000 people that don't know where their next meal comes from. I don't want to swear in a library, but that's fucked up, right? So we started the Great Banana Pudding Drive. And every time you buy a banana pudding, we take 50 cents and we donate it to CT Food Share. That's what they've calculated is the cost of one meal. And I went to CT Food Share because I wanted to learn more. And I said, hey, we'll do a can drive. And people can bring cans into our restaurants. And we'll give them discounts on food. And the CEO, whose name is also Jason, he's like, nobody wants your lima beans and cream corn. That's actually widening the gap. We want to provide food. So we go down every other month, our entire team, all of our GMs, all of our AGMs. We use their boardroom because we don't have a space. And then after our board meetings with all the GMs and training sessions, we go down and we pack food. And so we were there last week, and in an hour and a half, our team packed over 20,000 pounds of food that goes out to food closets, donation centers, everywhere, all across Connecticut, including Fairfield County and some of the richest spots. Like, there are people still in need and don't know where their next meal is. And it's been a great project for us, and our team gets really excited about it when we announce how many banana puddings we've sold every month. So it's something I'm super proud of. So yeah, we donate.
Do you have an estimate of the total amount that has been donated through the banana pudding program?
We are up to 185,000 meals since we started this about a year and a half ago.
Right.
It's a lot of banana pudding.
It's a lot. Last question here in front.
Jason, it's serendipitous to meet you. I signed up for this, and then I had the pleasure of working alongside Alexa last weekend at an event, and she was there for free. Like, that's the culture that you set. You mentioned earlier that you don't drink alcohol as much, and I really connected because I have a non-alcoholic store in Naugatuck right next to you. So the storytelling and educating about the food carries over, and I just really loved that you see that too. Well, I have a list of things I love about you right now, but I'm curious about, you're a visionary and you're paying attention, and I was just curious to your thoughts about NA. I know you carry athletic at the brewery. Just thoughts about the industry in general. I guess I'm being a little selfish, but I'm very curious because
No, I think
it's your wheelhouse.
it's a great question. I mentioned Black Hog Brewing quickly, and Alexis is our special events coordinator at Black Hog, and she's awesome. And she's going to get a text after this saying, like, got a shout out. She puts together amazing events at the brewery. What we've seen over the years is that beer in general is in a major decline, right? Listen, when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, I drank a lot of beer. But 16, 17, 8-year-olds don't drink beer anymore. And that's probably a good thing. Except they're addicted and they have this as their drug. And that's probably not a good thing. But this is replacing alcohol in a lot of ways. Oh, my son texted me. He does have a phone, but it's very limited. I'm a stickler. And so we need to get creative in this industry. So Black Hog Brewing Company is slowly becoming Black Hog Canning Company. So we just brought a pasteurizer in. We're going to start doing RTDs, so that's ready to drinks. And some of those will be alcoholic, not beer, some tequila stuff. But we have a full line of NA beverages that are coming out that you can mix with alcohol or not have any alcohol at all. I was mentioning Tim, he comes up with these shrubs. They're vinegar-based, they're fermented, but they have no alcohol. They're absolutely delicious. Just as much complexity as wine. And you can really get into the flavor profiles. You can pair them with cheese. You can do all kinds of fun stuff. Connecticut, as of 3 months ago, also opened up to breweries that you can start canning and producing beverages with hemp derivatives. And so we have some companies that are approaching us that say, hey, if you guys get this license, we want to can with you. So we're looking at all options as beer market share starts to decline and alcohol in general starts to decline. I will not shut down. I will innovate. I will invent. And the folks at the brewery are super excited about it. The brewers who have been brewing beer for some of them 20 plus years, they're stoked. They're like, we get to try something new. We get to do something different. So we're playing around with all kinds of stuff. And I'd love to hear more about your NA beverage shop. That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much. These are excellent questions from our audience. Thank you, Jason, for being here. Thanks. I want to also thank Ferguson Library for their hospitality. And And at the Connecticut Mirror, thanks to our publisher, Bruce Petterman, executive editor Beth Hamilton, director of revenue Robert DeGioia, Claire Dignan, Irene Mackey, Gabby DeBenedictis, Chris Nilsson, and the producer of this series, the one and only Harriet Jones. Thank you very much. You can read all of Connecticut Mirror's journalism at ctmirror.org, and you can also donate to support our work at that website. Thank you all for being here, and enjoy the lovely evening. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.